Good morning. Welcome, both in the sanctuary and online, to the Sunday service of the Unitarian Universalist Church of St. Petersburg. We're on the unceded ancestral lands of the Seminole and Tocobaga Native people. My name is Ben Atherton-Zeman. I'm the minister here. I am very excited to be joined by Aaron Cassette on the piano. John and James were here last week, but I didn't get to work with them, so I get to work with John and James. They're back. John and James are here. They are leading hymns and performing our anthem. Ms. Trish is leading our Time for All Ages. I'm really excited for the Fish in the River story. I have a part to play. And today's worship associate, you all know, Beth Stombaugh.
Yay. Yeah, it's good to be back. I was gone for about over a month. So thanks, Ben, and good morning, everyone. If you want a church which believes that Black Lives Matter, disability rights are human rights, no person is illegal or on stolen land, and that all people deserve health care, I have good news for you. You may have found your church home.
Thanks, Beth. We have a lot going on in church in general right now, and specifically today. I had many announcements submitted, but I'm only reading 2 short ones, but the rest are available in your order of service and in our weekly newsletter. Today is your congregational meeting. All of you who are members of UU St. Pete will be voting to change one of the bylaws. So please, at the end, get your coffee and snacks, but then check in with Michael Pohl. Michael, are you here? Well, there's Michael Pohl. He'll be at that table there, and those who are assisting Michael, and then come back and vote. And the second announcement, this is day 2 of our new member class. So if you're in the day 1 of the new member class 3 weeks ago, welcome back. If you weren't in day 1 and you're like, ooh, I'd like to take day 2, then we'll see you then too. The rest, I already said that part. There's tickets being sold for the cabaret night too. I felt bad about excluding that one, so I snuck it in.
As Unitarian Universalists, we are a people of diverse beliefs, but we share a common faith, a faith that every person is worthy of love, that we do in this world matters, that we are connected to one another and to the earth. Whoever you are, wherever you are on your journey, and you are welcome here.
And this weekend was Yom Kippur, the Jewish New Year, so Happy New Year to any Jewish people we have here, or to any who celebrate. And we want to give a special welcome to newcomers. Will you give a little wave if you're new or relatively new? It's hello waving people. It's like in a section. And I will take this microphone out of the stand, and I will walk back there. And should you wish, you are not required, raise your hand, and you can introduce yourself. Say a sentence or two of what brought you here.
Hi, Ralph Waldo brought me today.
Your name is Ralph Waldo. It's very nice to meet you.
And I am very fond of him. A lot of influence from my family. My name's Alice.
Alice, it's nice to meet you. Welcome, Alice.
I'm Mita Jones, and my sister-in-law invited me, Millie Jones, and I don't know where she is. Oh.
Millie's sister-in-law, Mita. Nice to meet you. You can hold on to it.
Okay. Hello, my name is Alex. I'll just stand up. Yeah, I came here looking for community and friends. So.
Glad you had. Go ahead, Beth.
Thank you for silencing your cell phones. Regarding masks, we still are not mandating them, but since several in our community have reported being exposed to COVID, we encourage anyone who wishes to wear one. Masks are available at either entrance. Let's take a moment to greet our neighbor. Remember to get consent if you're going to hug or shake their hand.
1 second, hon. I love it when they want to talk to each other. No, I love this. Go ahead, Beth. Beth, go ahead.
As Caitlin lights our chalice, please give voice to our shared connections by saying our covenant together. The words can be found in your program and online in the text chat. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Now please rise as you are willing and able for our first hymn, Morning Has Broken.
How many of you remember Cat Stevens? Well, that was enthusiastic. Wonderful. Well, this was one of his big hits. You know, he was known for doing UU hymns. I made that up. He wasn't. Morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing fresh from the word. Sweet the rain's new fall, sunlit from heaven, like the first dew on the first grass. Praise for the sweetness of the wet garden, sprung in completeness where God's feet pass. Mine is the sunlight, mine is the morning, born of the one light Eden saw blame. Praise with elation, praise every morning, God's recreation of the...
You may be seated. And I invite all the children who wish to come forward for our Time for All Ages. It's led by Trish Harding. And while the children are coming forward, I will tell you that after this interactive, complete with props, Time for All Ages, we will be having a food collection. I know some of you have brought your food. If you haven't, that's okay. I always forget to bring mine. And the kids, together with our fire marshal, is our fire marshal helping with? Yes, our fire marshal Sabina will be collecting the food donations. Are we set? Is anyone making animal noises that I should give a microphone to? Okay.
So we need our moon. Let's hold it. Okay. Can also be okay, the mountain has to be over there. Okay, take a look at these animals that I'm putting out. You might want to pick them up when you hear them in the story. There's going to be a moon, which the moon doesn't make any noise. But the animals might make some noise. If they don't worry about it.
I exited too soon, apparently. We are not done setting up our stagecraft, but we are almost ready. So, anyone else need a handheld mic?
Okay, so here's how it works.
There you go.
Here's how it works. Listen to the story. And if I say, the beavers were playing, then whoever's in front of the beavers, where are the beavers? Right there. Somebody picks the beavers up, and they play on the shore of the river. And there's a deer, and there are some geese, and there's a moon, and some bear cubs. Okay. Here comes the story. This story is The River, an Epic Journey to the Sea. And there's a little fish that's the star of this story. Where is that little fish? Oh, here comes the little fish. The little fish is going to meet lots of animals and see lots of things on its journey down the river. Here's how it goes. On snow-capped mountains among the firs, the north wind blows and something stirs. Let's hear some wind noise. Through the icy water, a small fish darts. This is where its journey starts. The river sparkles under sunlit sky. Overhead, white geese fly. Are there some geese? Oh, what do the geese say?
Tweet.
Let's hear some animal noises. What do the geese say? All right. Down the mountain through ice flows, on and on the little fish goes. Through pine forests. Oh, I think there's some pine trees over there. Where's our pine forest? We really rehearsed this. No. Through pine forest, still as night. The water glints through the dappled light. A deer looks up and sniffs the air. Smells delicious. The fish travels on to who knows where. Faster, faster, the river flows, rushing and gushing. Then it slows. Busy beavers. I think there's some beavers over there. Busy beavers scamper and scurry. Got some beavers? Show us the beavers. Yay! There they are. They scamper and scurry, and the fish swims on. Hurry, hurry. The moon shines down. Wow, look how tall the moon is. Yay! The whole world sleeps. Below, the little fish dives and leaps. Whee! An owl hoots softly. Let's hear some owls. Yeah, you guys are hired. The fish continues on its way. On the riverbank, 2 bear cubs play. Bear cubs? What do they say? Oh, great. So begins a brand new day. Through snow and wind, rain and sun, the fish must finish what it's begun. The days grow longer. The air is still. The fish swims on and on until the river becomes a sea. Is there a sea? Yay! This is where she's meant to be. The end. Good job, everyone. Thank you. Okay, bring your signs. Bring your signs and let's meet over here.
Let's have another round of applause for our river players. Now let us sing our, no, we don't sing our children out because we now have the food collection. Is that what happens? And we need traveling music, which I did not warn Aaron about. Let's see if I can magically wave. Hey. Fire Marshal Sabina. Now let's sing our children to their classes.
Now we come to the time in our worship service for joys and sorrows and concerns. Those of you on YouTube Live are not in this room, but your presence is still felt. Please type your joys and sorrows into the text chat. If you have a joy, sorrow, or concern to submit during the week, please write to Ben at minister@uusaintpete.org. Right now, Patty Kane Wood will place a stone in the water for each joy and concern that was submitted this week.
First, a rare hat trick of joy, sorrow, and a concern from Jim Fardell. And I'm going to point to Jim, and you'll see why in a second. Hi, Jim. The sorrow is that he has to leave his house. The joy is that he found an apartment to move into. The concern is that he needs help moving next weekend. So if you can help Jim, this gentleman sitting down in the lovely pink shirt, move next weekend, please see him during coffee hour.
Next, a stone of joy from Susan Bernard. She is happy and grateful for the $46,000 grant the UUA gave us for hurricane relief and roof repair. Also, thanks so much to Reverend Ben, who applied for the grant with help from the Buildings and Grounds team.
Thank you, B&G. A stone of sorrow from Art Monge in memory of Matthew Shepard, who was brutally tortured and murdered 25 years ago this week.
Thank you. This is a card of concern from Joanne Kellner. Tiffany, the owner of my company, and her son, Titan, have scarlet fever.
A stone of joy and concern from Kelly DeGraw. The joy is that I get to start traveling for work. The concern is I'm traveling for work. A second, I think, more serious concern is a child that she helped with money and let them do yard work was found inside her home without permission. He started casing things, touching things, and extra locks are now on order.
This is from Claudia Sunman, a concern. William Cohen is going for a heart procedure tomorrow. It will be an outpatient procedure, but he would appreciate your thoughts and prayers.
A stone of maybe sorrow, definitely concern, for emotional well-being is as vital as physical wellness. Danny says it's okay to ask for support. It's okay to offer compassion in response to such a request. Cries for help do not always sound the same. Please, let's destigmatize the difficult conversations. That's it. So let's bring to mind and hold close to our hearts Tiffany and Titan, William Cowan, Jim Friedel, Danny Bly, Kelly DeGraw and everyone in Kelly's home, to Matthew Shepard's family, and to all members of the LGBTQIA+ community who still face homophobia, transphobia, stigmatization, state-sponsored violence. Now please join us, and also all those unknown to us and known who are facing challenges, who are facing health concerns. And now we have our responsive reading written by John Motter.
Thank you, Patty. May our hearts not become calloused by the never-ending incidences of oppression and hatred that so many face each day.
Rather, may our hearts open to the positive efforts of so many people causing good trouble in the world. May we have the strength to demand and gain the right for all people to have a safe place to sleep, health care to keep them strong, and the knowledge that their lives matter. The struggle is taking longer than it should, but we will get there if we continue to fight for what we all know is right.
May all of us find a comforting and compassionate presence in the warmth of fellowship and community.
And if you don't mind, we'll place one more stone, and I can go do it. This is for those joys and sorrows that remain in our hearts, perhaps too tender to be spoken out loud. And let's take about a minute of silence together. The mystery is that we are connected even when we feel apart. So let's rejoice in our beloved community that makes of the many one. So may it be.
Come to me, come to me.
Our responsive reading today is number 531, your gray hymnal, by guess who? Ralph Waldo Emerson. We're going to have a lot of Emerson quotes, and being from the 19th century and in his particular time period, he uses language like man and mankind, and I've substituted humankind for that. But in this responsive reading, he does use traditional God language. Feel free to say mystery or source or whatever is comfortable for you. Emerson did think of God as the oversoul, and that's the title of this responsive reading. Let us learn the revelation of all nature and thought, that the highest dwells within us, that the sources of nature are in our own minds. Can you lead this with me? Yes.
I am constrained every moment to acknowledge a higher origin for events than the will I call mine.
There is deep power in which we exist and whose beatitude is accessible to us. Every moment when the individual feels invaded by it is memorable. It comes to the lowly, simple. It comes to whosoever will put off what is foreign and proud. It comes as insight. It comes as serenity and grandeur.
The soul's health consists in the fullness of its reception.
Forever and ever, the influx of this better and more universal self is new and unsearchable. Within us is the soul of the whole, the wise silence, the universal beauty, to which every part and particle is equally related, the eternal one. When it breaks through our intellect, it is genius. When it breathes through our will, it is virtue. When it flows through affection, it is love. Thank you. Now I invite you to say the UU St. Pete mission statement out loud. The game this week is easier than I did it before. Instead of 7 blank spaces, there are only 3. See if you can remember our mission. Our mission is to be an inclusive, evolving, well done, religious community that inspires spiritual and intellectual growth to make our world a better place. We bring our mission to life through a wide range of shared ministries: social justice, religious education, pastoral care, and many more. He did great.
Now I'm going to share with you one of my favorite Emerson poems. It is called What is Success? To laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the approbation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to give of oneself, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition, to have played and laughed with enthusiasm and sung with exultation, to know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky,
are also on the faces of people walking by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a fabulous world.
Thank you, James. Thank you, John. Our October theme is Unitarian Universalist heritage. And Todd's idea in the worship team was to feature some of our, quote, UU saints. So we'll be doing that all month, with one exception on October 24th, since it's also Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So our first UU saint is the transcendentalist Ralph Waldo Emerson. Now, he lived and preached 2 centuries ago, and we would be well served to simply focus on his life, his words, and his impact then. But I also want to connect him with us, with now. I want to reach back through time, those 2 centuries, and see how he remains connected to us, how his words and his work are still alive. For those of you who fill in those blank spots on the order of service, I will mention 3 of these influences that I think fall under those 3 categories on your order of service of inspiration, connection, and action. And I'll begin with action. And the one I'll suggest may surprise you for those who know me. I suggest we take action and read books and talk about them. Wow, yeah. Didn't expect. I mean, Emerson was very well read. He himself published 2 collections of his own essays. According to the Dictionary of Unitarian Universalist Biography, Emerson read many hundreds of volumes in several languages, including the latest scientific publications and the newly translated sacred texts of Eastern religions. Emerson read history and literature. Emerson was much taken with the idealist philosophy of Immanuel Kant, especially as it came to him through the writings of Samuel Coleridge and William Wordsworth. The influence of Hindu scriptures and Persian poetry, which Emerson had been reading for years, were fully incorporated into Emerson's thought and work by 1845. But Emerson didn't just read in isolation. I did not know this until I did the research for this worship service. UU Reverend Jessica Rodella says that for Emerson and for the Transcendentalists, conversation was a key spiritual practice to discern a deeper truth. So Emerson and his friends met at his house, met at other houses to discuss such bold and weighty topics as pantheism, morality, the education of humanity, and sometimes the topic titles were like my sermon titles, really long. So one was The Inspiration of the Prophet and the Bard, the Nature of Poetry, the Causes of Sterility of Poetic Inspiration in Our Age and Country. He did not mince words, did Ralph Waldo. And for some of you, myself included, reading is very hard. But for myself, as someone with learning disabilities and reading difficulties, it helps to read with other people. It helps to discuss what I've read with other people. This is how I got through divinity school, because if I was just reading in isolation, I couldn't have done it. Now, several of you just came this morning from our own morning reading group, having prepared answers to questions that your hardworking group leaders sent out to you in preparation. So reading doesn't have to be an elite, exclusive activity. You don't have to have the flowery language that Emerson had. You can just talk to your friends. Even Emerson's flowery language can be understood better if we can take the time to help one another understand. I actually used the word ameliorate in my first draft of this. My reading difficulties are ameliorated by reading and discussing with others, but then I cut it out because ameliorate is one of these hard words. It means, by the way, to make something bad or difficult better. So, back to the topics, back to the content. These topics that we've talked about kind of seem like modern day UU 101, pantheism, world religions, science, nature, history, literature, but Rodella says that in the 19th century, this was not Unitarianism. Emerson was thus labeled a dangerous influence on young minds and a heretic who rejected the necessity of biblical miracles, who abandoned the practice of communion, who thought ministers and priests were helpful but not required for interpreting or understanding spirituality or morality or truth. But if you hear the echoes of modern Unitarian Universalist principles and sources in Emerson's words, that's not a coincidence. Although he quit Unitarian ministry after a few short years, Emerson's influence on our denomination is profound, and he's influenced the wider culture at large. For those of you filling out the blank spots, I would say Emerson's inspiration was not just his words, but his actions, his specifically rejection of the accepted norms of the time, something that some of us practice today here in Florida. UU Reverend Jean Lloyd tells us that 19th century Unitarianism focused on the unity of God. Actually, she said 18th century, so Emerson was the very beginning of the 19th century. Lloyd says that 18th century Unitarianism focused on the unity as opposed to the Trinity of God. And according to Lloyd, the message was usually intellectual and already calcified, Emerson's words, in tradition that called for sermons that were hours long. It's 11:15, start counting. Sermons that were orthodox in their delivery and that failed to touch the people in resonating and meaningful ways. Emerson put it, "I sometimes think the church is tottering, dying thing. Genius is crowded out of the pulpit, and what remains is stale bread on tarnished plates." We'll be serving stale bread on tarnished plates for coffee hour. We won't, I'm kidding. It's good food. Emerson said, "The leaves outside the window have more life than most sermons." Emerson wanted Unitarian ministers to provide memorable, spellbinding images and ideas, born of a creative fire of thought. I'll come back to fire of thought, that would nurture the spirits of souls listening in the pews. Reverend Lloyd says that through the eloquence of Emerson's writings and lectures, Transcendentalism and its followers cracked the Unitarian faith wide open and set the stage for it to be both liberally religious and promoters of reason and science. They created space for both and, incorporating Eastern religions and naturalistic mysticism, when the prevailing culture only offered narrow views of God. Emerson urged ministers and lay folks to stop arguing about the validity of biblical miracles and start teaching about the need for us to use our innate capacity, capability, and consciousness to, as he put it, look within ourselves to sense our likeness with God. And he called the God the oversoul, remember. Emerson called on them to encourage the people to seek a direct and immediate experience of the divine. Recognize one of our sources, direct experience of the divine. In his essay, Nature, Emerson said the foregoing generations beheld God and nature face to face, we through their eyes. Why should not we also enjoy an original relation to the universe? Why should we not have a poetry and philosophy of insight? And Emerson said, embosomed for a season in nature whose floods of life stream around and through us and invite us by the powers they supply to action proportioned to nature. Why? Same sentence. All the nature, you're feeling the nature, and then why should we grope among the dry bones of the past or put the living generation into masquerade out of its faded wardrobe? Praise for the sweetness of the right? Emerson said in Nature, the sun shines today also. There is more wool and flax in the fields. There are new lands, new people, new thoughts. Let us, he said, demand our own works and laws and worship. And I think to myself, what a fabulous world. Emerson's bold rejection of Unitarian norms may have been shaped by early trauma. Those of you who know Emerson's history know this. He was 24 years old when he met 16-year-old Ellen Louise Tucker. They fell in love. They got married 2 years later. But Ellen died of tuberculosis after only 2 years of marriage. Emerson was devastated by this loss. He writes about visiting Ellen's grave daily. And it was during this time that he began to question many of the denomination's customs, including the giving of communion, what he called the Lord's Supper. And I've spoken to many of you in this room, and some of you have shared this during joys and sorrows. Some of you are dealing with grief and loss right now, and some of your losses are recent. And this could serve as the connection part of today's lesson. Even reading about Emerson's early loss of his young wife broke my heart, as my heart breaks when your heart does. Rodella says Emerson sees the day optimism was his answer to the meaning of suffering and the inevitability of loss. It was among the tombs of the dead near his wife's grave, surrounded by living trees and whispering wind, that Emerson was first struck by that moment of illumination when he felt a kind of revelation at one with all universe. This was a high point for him, inspiring a life with greater intensity and passion, feeling deeply connected with others and with the universe. This was an intuition of the nature of things, a glimpse of unlimited possibilities, a vision of a life transformed. Have you ever had this? Have you had a moment of connection to the universe, a glimpse? Many of you are nodding. However fleeting, of, as Emerson calls it, an oceanic well-being, part of the whole, part of the holiness of everything. So Emerson's connection to nature and the universe is well documented, but he also spoke and wrote about connection with other human beings. His well-known essay, Self-Reliance, is not about individualism, as many think. Reverend Kimberly Debus tells us, No, that's capitalism twisting Emerson's words and even ours, attempting to turn us away from a community of free believers to being isolated individuals. Debus says, from our very beginnings, we have been about community, and it is that thread which is in fact countercultural. Reverend Carl J. Gregg argues that people know the title, self-reliance, and they misunderstand Emerson as coming from a perspective of selfishness or narcissism. But Emersonian self-reliance is not reliance upon the small s self in isolation. It's upon the self as part of a larger big S self. And because all selves are equally a part of the larger self, each person equally possesses what? Inherent worth and dignity. In essence, Emerson read all of our modern UU principles through the lens of the interdependent web of existence of which we are a part. And our responsive reading from Emerson earlier reminds us that when that which is greater than us, what he calls the oversoul, some might call God, Mother Goddess, Spirit of Life, or just a great mystery, or no name at all, that when that which is greater than us breaks through our intellect, it is genius. When it breathes through our will, it is virtue. When it flows through our affections, it is love. Here's these images of flowing, of breathing, the natural cycles that the transcendentalists found divine. And these are some action verbs too. Breaks, breathes, flows. And the action verbs remind me of Dr. King's verb caught, as in we are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality tied in a single garment of destiny. So to King and to Emerson, this illusion of small s self, of separation, is neither realistic nor sustainable. My wife Lucinda's favorite Emerson quote is this: the glory of friendship is not the outstretched hand, it is the spiritual inspiration that comes to one when they discover that someone else believes in them, someone else is willing to trust them. And her other favorite quote is, the civility of no race can be perfect, whilst another race is degraded. It is a doctrine alike of the oldest and of the newest philosophy that humankind is one. So he was an abolitionist in the 1800s. And that you cannot injure any member without a sympathetic injury to all the members. Does that sound familiar? Dr. King. What affects one directly affects all indirectly. An injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. 2 centuries ago, reaching back, Emerson's words, still alive, still with us. Now, I'm not saying Emerson was warm and fuzzy. Reverend Lloyd tells us that Emerson's great skills as an orator, as a preacher, contrasted with his lack of proficiency in pastoral care. Apparently, once while at a bedside of a dying Revolutionary War veteran, Emerson found himself unsure of what to say. The veteran sat up in bed and yelled at him, "If you don't know your trade, you might as well go home." Author Stephen Kendrick said he tended to be quite formal. He was always called Mr. Emerson, even by his closest friends. Emerson was once told by a friend that he could have more influence if he were personally warmer. Emerson replied that he never intended to be a substitute for the kitchen stove. Speaking of stoves, I'll close by talking about fire, as promised. Some of us are pagans, and by pagan we believe that the earth is alive and is a living mother goddess. The 4 banners on our wall represent the 4 sacred things of earth, air, fire, and water. Now, Robert Richardson wrote a biography called Emerson, the Mind on Fire, because the imagery Emerson used to describe the mind's capacity for transcending and transforming thought was fire. Richardson said that Emerson's favorite image of fire, of the creative mind, is a volcano. Emerson wrote, "A spark of fire is infinitely deep, but a mass of fire reaching from earth upward into heaven, this is the sign of a robust, united, burning, radiant soul, where one's own small flame is connected to the souls of others, their fires, and the great central fires of life, interdependent web, interconnectedness. Emerson wrote, "Our days demand fire. We must have not only hydrogen in balloons, not only steel springs under coaches, but we must have fire under the mountains at the core of the world." Blessed, wonderful members of UU St. Pete and today's visitors, our days demand fire. So let us hold one another during our hurt, our loss, our grief, so that none of us copes with these in isolation. Let us remember this chalice of flame. Let's find that volcanic fire within ourselves, and together, let's take it with us this week. If you don't see me until next week, let's take it this week, and let's remember that we are connected to this man from 2 centuries ago, and that we are connected to one another and to this earth. Amen. Ashe. Blessed be.
For our offering, here are more words from Emerson. Wealth begins in a tight roof that keeps the rain and wind out, and a good pump that yields you plenty of sweet water, in tools to work with, in books to read, and so in giving on all sides by tools and auxiliary. It's stuck. The greatest extension to our powers, as it is, hold on a minute, as it is added feet and hands and eyes and blood, linked to the day and knowledge and goodwill. In the sanctuary, the offering will now be given and received.
Please rise in body and spirit for the closing hymn, number 163 in your gray hymnal, "For the Earth Forever Turning."
For the earth forever turning, for the skies for every sea, for for the mountains, hills, and pastures in their silent majesty, for the stars, for all the heavens, sing we our joyful song of peace. For the sun, for rain and thunder, for the seasons' harmony, for our lives, for all creation, sing we our joyful praise to thee. For the world we raise our voices, for the home that gives us birth. In our joy we sing, returning home to our blue-green hills of earth.
You may be seated. This week we're going to end the whole worship service with our chalice extinguishing. So many microphones to choose from. Following our postlude music, organ music, pretty exciting. And then our closing words by Beth with her microphone. So first closing words and then chalice extinguishing.
Yeah, okay. This is my wish for you.
So first it's postlude and then you. Sorry. We just wanted to end with the chalice extinguishing. Thank you, Aaron. So postlude, then closing words, then chalice extinguishing.
I'm sorry.
No, it's my fault. I should have explained it better.
Thank you, Aaron. This is another poem by Emerson. This is my wish for you. Comfort on difficult days, smiles when sadness intrudes, rainbows to follow the clouds, laughter to kiss your lips, sunsets to warm your heart, hugs when spirits sag, beauty for your eyes to see, friendships to brighten your being, faith so that you can believe, confidence for when you doubt, courage to know yourself, patience to accept the truth, and love to complete your life.
Thank you, Beth. Now we invite you all to say our chalice extinguishing as Beth extinguishes the chalice. The words are in your order of service online. They are in the text chat. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of love, or the fire of courage. These we carry in our hearts out into the world. Please join us for coffee hour in Gilmore Hall, followed again by our congregational meeting here in the sanctuary. Our worship is over, but our service begins. We hope this time together will help you through your week. We'll help you remember you are not alone. Blessings.